Hello there. I'm checking my audio, my video. It's kind of a surreal perspective, isn't it? Let's see if we can fix it a little, not much. You can see behind me there the refrigerator with, gotta get my finger to go in the right direction, there we go, assorted works of art, the obligatory cereal boxes on top of it, and the ceiling fan here in my kitchen. I'm becoming aware of some changes in myself, and one of the changes I'm becoming aware of, well, I should say who I am, in case you don't know. I'm Craig Bergland. I'm the presiding and founding bishop of the Universal Anglican Church, on whose website you are watching this particular video. I just had a cramp. It's been a period outside of cold and rain these last 2 days, and as any of you who have crossed that threshold of about 35, and I crossed that threshold about, oh my God, 18 years ago. Well, we're sorry we talked about that. Anyway, I crossed that threshold about 18 years ago, but if you've crossed that threshold of 35, or what I like to call the spraining the ankle threshold, then you know that when it rains, it doesn't feel good. And a lot of things have been going on lately, and one of the things, as I started to say before I realized you might not know who I am, which is certainly ego run amok, isn't it? The next video will be on ego. Is that while I love to write, gosh, I write a lot. And so I want to start doing a series of audio or video stuff rather here on the UAC website to talk a little bit about what we're about, which may or may not be what I'm about at the moment. One of the graces of being in an interspiritual church is that we have a freedom to, in Christian terms, allow the Spirit to lead us where it will, including to scratch our eye here. And that means that our journey may lead us at different times to focus on different aspects of different traditions as they inform our own journey. And in any event, where I am right now is thinking and writing and now talking with you about ways that we might come to better understand what it is to be interspiritual. And one of the things I read recently, in actually a description of Hinduism, was that Hinduism has a respect for all of the I was going to say all of the great religious traditions, but I suppose that implies a value judgment too, doesn't it? I suppose even the mediocre ones, depending on your perspective, Hinduism has a respect for it. And I think that's something worth incorporating and adopting regardless of your particular tradition. Many of us have been raised in traditions, or subsets almost of traditions, that encourage us to adopt this attitude that says perhaps our tradition is the only right one, or at the very least it's certainly the most correct one. And so while we may tolerate you, if you're in a little bit of a different place, don't find yourself in a place that's very much different, or we're going to have to start drawing some lines here and defining some things and saying who's right and who's wrong. And once you do that, of course, respect falls by the wayside, because now you're not somebody that I really respect. Now your particular spiritual journey isn't something that I respect. Now I've placed myself, and isn't this generous of me? Now I've placed myself in this position where I have the right to criticize your tradition, your journey, and what's more, I'm claiming a perspective that is so overarching that I can tell you whether your particular journey is the right one to be on or not. And I have to tell you, to me that sounds an awful lot like an attempt to make myself God. And I think such attempts are always very ill-advised. They don't serve us well, and they don't serve the people we encounter very well either. They are the epitome of arrogance, and I want to say that the heart of the spiritual journey is stripping away that need to make myself okay by making you somehow less than okay. We see that attitude, particularly here in the United States, not just in the religious debates, but in the political debates. We are at this intense period of apparently needing to set ourselves up as better than the other. And that is truly unfortunate. It's also truly a mistake. Can we get to the place at a very basic level where I can say that my journey right now, as it sits, is right for me? But I'm also humble enough to acknowledge that it may not be right for you. That you have a set of needs and situations and circumstances in your life that may well have necessitated at least a slightly different path, and perhaps a greatly different path for you as you move along. The question we're then faced with is, how do we coexist? And in the context of church, can we coexist in community, which means that in order to even begin doing that, we're going to need this mutual respect. Now, what we're going to discover as we coexist in community is that the places where your path and my path and other people's paths diverge is going to be a place of, at times, friction, but also a very creative tension where we might actually come to share the depth of our experience, where we might not feel the need to construct these walls that defend our particular positions and instead open ourselves up and share deeply. That's how lasting community is built. It's built by that sharing of ourselves. And if we set up a situation whereby we're claiming that only one of us can be right, we are absolutely closing the door on that sharing. That's the heart of interspirituality. And I believe that's the heart of Anglicanism, which is a middle way tradition. Initially, it was a middle way between Roman Catholicism and Lutheranism. But what we find today is that if we're trying to find the middle way between Roman Catholicism and Lutheranism, we have a very narrow sort of little space there, because there just isn't that much convergence. And I would like to suggest that contemporary Anglicanism is asking the following question: what is the middle road between authentic spirituality, as it has existed within religious traditions, all of them, and this place where people find themselves having moved from religious traditions because they have become dominated by institutionalism? And institutionalism says, above all else, my principal value is that this structure must survive. And people have seen through that and stepped away from it. And so now we're left with, first and foremost, a need for community. Second, a real danger, quite honestly, of losing what was valuable in those traditions, losing the core teachings, losing what I call the God experience, around which then these institutions came to be built. And unfortunately, what happened was that the institutions in many cases became something like what's going on in Chernobyl over the course of the next few years. I don't know if you've seen the articles, but in Chernobyl they're building a massive structure that they will construct and then slide over the reactors, because the concrete that was poured on the top of them now is starting to deteriorate. And so they're building this structure sort of on wheels, probably isn't the right description, but they're going to roll it over the reactors then, drop it down, and it will seal the reactors and prevent leakage for at least 100 years. Some people believe for as many as 300 years. Well, that structure has been built and slid over Christianity and other of the great religious traditions as well. Dropped down on it. It's called institutionalism. It sealed the truths inside, and people started to recognize they weren't escaping. Well, interspirituality says we're going to drill holes in the containment building and let the truths leak out. without feeling it necessary to retain the structure of the institution. And so what we're left with are these raw experiences of transcendence and divinity that we've all had, and the opportunity to share them without worrying about, are we going to get kicked out of our containment building, and move forward, hopefully, if we do it well, more awake, more aware, and even, dare I say it, more enlightened people. Until next time, I'm Bishop Craig Bergland of the Universal Anglican Church. I wish you God's rich blessings. Namaste.